Now that we have a bit of understanding of ecosystems and the living and non living components of the environment, let's change gears a bit back to the question of why it is important to study environmental science. The environment is what sustains life on Earth, including but not limited to humans. And so the future of the human species really depends on our ability to understand how the environment works, meaning how Earth's systems work, how they support life, and what needs to be done in order to sustain those systems in the face of some pretty serious transformations that are happening right now. Because the earth has a finite amount of resources, there's only so much water, there's only so much air, there are only so many forests, there are only so many metal ore deposits, etc. And those resources are being stressed. It's important to study how, where, and why this is all happening. And environmental science provides the foundations for that understanding. As powerful and inextinguishable as humans might seem, we have only been around for a very short period of time relative to the history of the Earth. The Earth has existed for approximately 4.5 billion years, and humans have only been around for about 200,000 years. To put that into perspective, that we can better wrap our brains around, if the history of the Earth was condensed into a 1 year period, humans would have only existed for the last 23 minutes of that year. 23 minutes out of a whole year. Despite only having been around for this very short period of time, human activity and consumption of resources is having a profound impact on almost every dimension of the natural environment. And although the Earth has undergone many changes over the course of its geologic history, the rate of the changes that are being brought on by human activity is much faster than any other transformation that has been brought about by a life form. This is not to say that other organisms haven't had an impact on the Earth. For example, based on evidence from geology and micropaleontology, we know that about 2.5 billion years ago, a type of bacteria called cyanobacteria evolved and started performing photosynthesis. You may remember from previous studies that the process of photosynthesis obtains energy from sunlight and also releases oxygen. Before cyanobacteria existed, the amount of oxygen in Earth's atmosphere was negligible. But as these cyanobacteria proliferated and produced more and more oxygen, it started to be absorbed into the ocean. And then, when the ocean couldn't absorb any more, it started to accumulate in the atmosphere. This accumulation is referred to as the Great Oxygenation Event, and it led to the current state of the Earth's atmosphere today, where it consists of about 20% oxygen. But when this change was first taking place, oxygen was not only unnecessary, but was actually toxic to many organisms on Earth and caused them to become extinct. This is not unlike what's happening today with humans' activity driving environmental changes that cause extinction. If a tiny bacteria was able to cause huge transformations in the atmosphere and bring about a mass extinction, humans surely can too. And what's more concerning about the changes that humans are bringing about on Earth is the pace at which the disruption is taking place today. The oxygenation of the Earth's atmosphere caused a huge change in the environment, but as you can see from this figure, it happened very slowly over the course of about 2 billion years. On the other hand, humans, as we said, have only been around for about 200,000 years and have only really been making a significant impact on the earth for the past 12,000 years. With the biggest changes occurring over the past 300 years. The bottom line here in the Great Oxygenation Event was deadly, but it was slow and gave many organisms the time to evolve and adapt over many generations, developing not just the ability to survive in an oxygen rich atmosphere, but to become reliant on that oxygen. The long duration created the space for new species to evolve to suit the new conditions. Human induced transformations are happening so quickly that life on Earth isn't getting any room to breathe. In fact, today, the rate at which species are going extinct is 10,000 times greater than the rate at which species are being renewed. meaning for every one species that evolves to adapt to its new environment, 10,000 are going extinct. In fact, today the rate at which species are going extinct is 10,000 times greater than the rate at which species are being renewed, meaning for every one species that evolves to adapt to its new environment, 10,000 are going extinct. So, why is this all happening? There are many reasons why humans have emerged as a major source of environmental impact, but we're going to learn about the three major ones. The first is mechanization, meaning the development of machines that drive industry and production. Agriculture has been mechanized, manufacturing has been mechanized, transportation has been mechanized, and so much more. With the invention of these machines that carry out so many of the things that used to be done by hand or perform new tasks that were not even previously possible, a vast new array of goods and services have become cheaply available for human consumption. With that has emerged a consumer culture and a disposable mentality that we can always buy more things, get rid of old things, and all the while the consumption of resources has increased. And this doesn't just include the raw materials that are used to make things like wood, metals, minerals, etc., but the energy that is used to fuel the machines, which is almost invariably fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are chemicals that were formed from the decomposition of living things that died millions of years ago. Oil, gas, natural gas, all of these are the residue of very, very old dead plants, uh, cyanobacteria, algae, and in part animals. And there is only a finite amount of them in the earth, and they are being used up at an extremely rapid pace. Not only are fossil fuels being used to provide the energy for industrial processes, but they also serve as raw material. Plastics are all made of fossil fuels, as are many fabrics like nylon, polyester, and spandex. And many other materials are quite literally made from the chemical remnants of ancient dead organisms. The second reason is the size of the human population. 10,000 years ago, humans were quite scant across the globe, with an estimated world population of about 4 million. That's less than the Phoenix metropolitan area alone, across the whole world. Between that time and the year 1700, the world population grew only 0.04% per year. Since the year since the year 1700, the rate of human population growth has skyrocketed, and we are now approaching 8 billion, with 70 million people being added to the planet every year. 70 million new people every year, whereas 10,000 years ago, there were only 4 million total. The global population is projected to reach 9.7 billion by the end of 2050, and all of that extra consumption will only exacerbate the resource crisis that we are facing. The third reason is pollution. The industrialized processes that humans have invented are introducing toxic chemicals into the environment. Some of these are naturally occurring chemicals that are reaching unnaturally high levels because of the scale of their production. For example, methane is a naturally occurring chemical that even humans produce in their digestive tracts. But it's also a byproduct of many industrial processes, and because of this, its levels in the atmosphere have increased sharply. Others are chemicals. Others are chemicals simply do not exist in nature at all. An example of these is phthalates, which are man made chemicals used to make plastics more durable. Phthalates are known to harm the reproductive systems of animals, which include humans, by interfering with hormones that harm is significant. So they were actually banned being used in children's toys in 2009, but they are still being used in other products and polluting the environment where they can cause harm to organisms. Phthalates are just one example where we know that there is a harmful effect. But for many other byproducts, we don't actually have any studies on their toxicity. And the list of man-made chemicals is getting longer and longer without sufficient information on whether they are safe for humans or for the environment. So that was all a bit bleak, but hopefully it conveys the gravity and the importance of environmental science as a subject. And now we can shift gears again and talk about the concept that is being advanced to address these environmental challenges. That concept is sustainability. Sustainability is an idea that describes the ability to sustain, and in the context of our world, the definition that our textbook uses for sustainability as the scientific, cultural, and socio-political challenges of living within the means of the earth without significantly impairing its function. Closely tied to sustainability is another concept referred to as sustainable development. In other words, the ability to continue to develop and advance human society in a manner that is sustainable. The most commonly used definition of sustainable development today was created by the World Commission of Environment and Development in 1987. And that is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Because while environmental considerations are crucially important in sustainability, they are not the only considerations when it comes to making sustainable decisions. Social considerations and economic considerations in are also in play, and sustainability lies at the intersection of all of these things. Environmental considerations prioritize the preservation and restoration of ecosystems and their biodiversity. Economic considerations prioritize the efficient use of resources and economic growth. And social considerations prioritize social needs such as justice and equity. Sustainability must balance these things. For example, if the government were to suddenly put a hard stop on land development and say all undeveloped land is now protected because preservation and conservation of the environment is the utmost goal, and we will be pursuing that at all costs. Um, would be sustainable from one perspective, but it would lead to long-term economic sustainability and the ability of people to support themselves? Would it lead to a long term sustainability of social systems and achievement of greater equity and quality of life? Perhaps not. And so the environment is not the only factor that comes into play with sustainability. And therefore, when we talk about sustainability throughout this class, these other factors will be up for discussion